My mother born in 1933 in a little, it was not a town, it was a serra, in a small little place at Paraíba, the state she born. Her mother was a white woman whose family has come from Italy, and her father was a black man. And they got married and they had together 9 children. My mother is one of those 9 children. As she grew up, she said that she couldn't go to school. My grandpa didn't believe that a woman should go to school. My mother was forbidden to go to school. It had a little school going on at the house of my father right then. And my mom found out and she would go when my grandpa was not home. And she would watch the class from outside, from the window. She would love to learn. And then she would bring little piece of papers that my grandpa would bring from the market with pieces of meat or rice or coffee or sugar, I don't know what. She would find some little piece of hard, kind of like board, cardboard. And she would write, and she would keep them in a box. She would make a hole in the ground, and she would keep those little piece of paper with that she would write things. And she would hide them in the backyard, made a hole in the ground. I grew up knowing that, and when he found out, he beat her. He threw away all the papers. And he would beat her up with the same material that you hit an animal and a horse. And afterwards, he would put salt. It doesn't get infected. So my mom grew up like that, but she kept running around and going and taking those classes. And my dad saw her, and my dad saw her, and he fell in love with her, and he started to put her name wherever he could, like the bridge where the train would pass. It has this high thing, and he goes way up there, and he would write his name and her name together. So one day my dad go through my mom's house, and he asked for water, and she gave water through the window. That's her story. And he took her hair and kissed her hair. My grandpa saw, and he brought the priest in the house, I think 2 weeks later, and my mom, she always complained that she had to marry him. She said she was not ready. She really liked him, but she was not ready to marry. But she did. She had to. And then she was taken to my father's house. That was their school. And he lived in one of the rooms. And like she said, she got in the room, and the man was naked. She just ran and jumped the window and ran away back to home. So the whole family had to get together and talk to her, and she said, well, that's life over the young lady when get married, and she bring them. And take her the next day back to my father's house. And her story began. Because right then, at that time, my grandma didn't like that my father had married a woman that was daughter of a black man. So she left the house, and I think she didn't go back for a couple months, and my mom felt really bad about that. So I grew up knowing that, and I thought, I always had in my mind, if I could help the woman some way, of all the pain she had, that I could see in my mother. And I learned that my grandma and my grandpa had got divorced. So my grandma comes to live with us. And so three other sisters of my mom and one of her brother come to live with us. When I was about 5 years old, I found my mother in the backyard trying to kill herself. She had an alcohol or kerosene bottle, and she had some matches. And I had just found her diary talking about how sad she was because my father had a girlfriend, and she planned to take her life that night. I saw that. I tried to talk to her. She put me inside the house and closed the door of the kitchen. I went to the front door and I opened the top. It was a door with two parts. I opened the top, couldn't open the bottle. I jumped and I went to the neighbor and I asked for help. So my mother now is 88 years old. And for me, this is one of the first miracles that she had. Besides that, I think to take care of all her childs the way she was. I remember when I was a child, in those times, a woman could not even to go to school, my mom, to write and read by getting book and asking help, and after she went to live with my father, it was developed more, her learning. Eventually my grandma came back to home and they start to work the difference. I want to do this, and my husband is there with my son, and an accident's going to happen. And he said, no, 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 you are crazy. So a man in a tow truck heard and said, I believe you. I take you there. I believe you saying the truth. Now, if you are lying, then when we get there, you got to pay me. And she said, okay. So he took her there, and when they got there, as they are getting approaching to the school, the accident has happened. So they got to see the accident, and my brother almost died in that accident. So my mom saw that before it even happened. So we grew up like that. My mom had a lot of visions. My mom was always feeling something. She saw something. And we got to learn to live with that. My dad was drink more and more, and life it became harder and harder for us. So eventually my mom couldn't take it so much suffering, and we all as a family could not take either. My old sister was already married and living home. But okay, that doesn't matter. After my mom done all that and helping the family, she could do. She was a tailor. She made shoes. She made suitcases. She had a little restaurant. She had an open market booth where she would sell the clothes that she would tailor. And she did everything that she could. But we always have to move off city, and my dad would take most of the time in the morning and would spend going to meet girls and do all kind of stuff that God knows what he was doing right then. Now, as I get more and more aware of myself, more and more aware of life, and I become more and more aware of our surroundings, I see my mother and her fight to go through life, to be someone, to learning. Like about 40 years old, she tried to go back to school. And I was so supportive with her right then. And she couldn't do it because my father and some closer people of the family thought that was not good for a woman to do it. So I did this painting in honor of my mom, who I thank you so much for all her life of love and to all her child. And